Hello, and welcome back to the Cooper Lyden is Alone podcast. If you can't keep up with the fast-paced, high-energy speed of this podcast, uh, then get the heck out, okay? Just get out. This podcast is aggressive. It's in your face. It's no holds barred. It doesn't give a fuck. You come here for energy. You come here for guys pushing the limits. Um, I'm happy to be here. We won most watched thing of anything on TV, streaming service, sports, anything. We got most watched thing for the last episode. I think it was episode 25. I think there were some major power outages in a lot of countries, so that helped. A lot of people got sick. There's a huge spike in COVID. A lot of people died. And then people were pretty busy with both of those things. And so most things didn't get watched. But my fans are so dedicated that you guys all stayed. So every other thing dropped to viewers of about 10 or so people, and we edged them out by about 14 of you tuning in and watching. So that's great. And thank you to all of my viewers in Bangladesh who pushed through the floods, pushed through the rain. I heard some stories about people setting up, even building their own makeshift generators on their roof and watching the podcast, being able to charge their phone or computer and listen and watch it that way. So I got to thank you for that. Really got to thank you. And to everybody that's affected by power outages and major natural disasters, but have continued donating money to the podcast, not paying for food for your family, trying to keep the kids from starving, not focusing on that, but instead focusing on throwing some change my way. We really thank you for that. Because, I'm over here in Los Angeles and it's been a little hot lately. So that's been good. Thank you. And, if you're ever affected by a natural disaster, or you believe in donating to one, think about my podcast as well. I'm not saying donate to us, don't donate to natural disasters. I'm saying that would be a terrible thing to say. What I am saying is, if you're going to make the choice to just give away money to God knows who, maybe watch my podcast first, and maybe you just want to give away money. Maybe it's not about the whole charity thing. You know what I mean? Because there's natural disasters, there's attacks, there's awful stuff every day. But, so is my podcast every week, And what, do you want to donate to a bunch of sometimes faceless kids that go to some school you ain't even heard of just because they're going through a tough time, just because somebody got a little uppity? Or do you want to give money to a guy who you could watch speak for 25 hours, Watch 25 hours of me doing stream of consciousness and go, should he get $5 a month? And I want to start a Patreon that you get nothing for it. You get nothing for being a part of the Patreon. The Patreon is only a testament that you have watched my free content and you say, I feel comfortable with giving this man $5 a month. And it's not for you. You don't even need to watch the show. It's more so the shows that you have watched of it are only to decide, is he good enough for $5 a month? And essentially, if my podcast could be an audition for people to watch a little bit and then go, okay, I'll give him $5 a month and then never watch again, that would be fine with me. If I could have the biggest Patreon in the world with the least amount of viewers or produced content, I would be in the most enviable position of any man for the last, probably back until Julius Caesar, if you've even listened to this long into this episode and this is the first time you've listened, think, should we give him $5? He seems a little tired today. maybe he could use a Red Bull. He could get one a month, two a month probably, if I were to give him some money. So think about that. And yeah, I am a little tired. I am a little sluggish today. I don't know. I started my day off with a cup of coffee, a quiche Lorraine, and a green salad. I went to a French restaurant with my girlfriend. It's a local French restaurant. Yeah, they got sidewalk dining. Yeah, sometimes we take it. No, we went inside today because it was windy. I pulled up to the restaurant first. She wasn't there. I assessed the wind, and then I said, this is an inside job. She's a tiny lady. She's going to get cold. Even if she's not cold, she doesn't want to wear her jacket out to have a whole breakfast. You know what I mean? This is breakfast. And I think the real French restaurant lovers, the real people who are really there, down with the cause, the sickness, and the system, go inside. It's the people that want to be seen on the sidewalk that get the sidewalk. And sometimes it's good to be out there, smoking cigarettes at any point in the meal. Just light one up. And if you go there enough, they don't tell you to not do that. They go, he's here. It's good for a fresh restaurant to have guys that hang out here too much. That's kind of essential for every French restaurant to have one, at least a few guys that hang out there way too much and are there for long periods of time, and they openly smoke. That's what you need. That's how Jean-Paul Sartre wrote some of his greatest works, was sitting outside of cafes in France smoking with Simone de Beauvoir and talking about ideas. And maybe this French restaurant off Vermont in East Hollywood could be the breeding grounds of the greatest stand-up special ever made. Maybe that could be. And, if you live in LA and you think I know what restaurant he's talking about, well, there's two on Vermont, and they both got sidewalk dining. So you know which one I'm going to. Doesn't matter. Sidewalk dining is funny, though, because it comes off as if it's like kind of a fancy thing, or very kind of cosmopolitan or ritzy, But it's also like somebody can walk by and just spit on your food, Because sometimes there's obviously the sidewalk dining that's right outside the restaurant, that's up against like the windows of the restaurant, and you're all lined up out there, and they're very close tables. But also they throw a couple on the other side near the street. So sometimes you're out there, It's only a few feet away from the restaurant, but you're far enough away that some shit can happen, you know what I mean? And also sidewalk dining is not always where you want to be. It's not always the move. You know where else there's sidewalk dining? Also, a lot of sushi restaurants in Little Tokyo. There's also a lot of in Little Tokyo is homeless people who know there are people sitting outside for hours at a time and can be asked questions, usually about being given things. And I mean, there are homeless people in Vermont, but they usually are looking straight ahead, yelling, and they just keep going by. That being said, one time I did show up to the restaurant. My girlfriend was there, and she was like, yeah, they had to kick that homeless guy out. He kept trying to start a fight with the guy. So that is what's tough about, listen, in LA, you're not in Paris. And I don't know about their homeless situation, but I feel like their homeless situations are like homeless guys you see in a painting. They're just like, ugh, don't bother me. Like just whatever. Like just very moody. You're like, you're just moody. You're not, I don't even know. You're so moody, you're homeless. But in LA, it's like, no, this is like, it's not a dangerous part of town. It's a gentrified part of town. But what that comes with is homeless people, some of which probably used to live there and just have normal lives until you kind of fucked everything up for them. So it's not dangerous, but I'm saying the vibe, it's not France. It's not France. And sometimes a person is coming down that street and they're going to remind you. They're going to remind you that you're a piece of shit cosplaying as a French person. They're going to yell at you. And you might have to ask yourself a question of, do I fight this homeless guy? Will anyone in LA even support, like if this homeless guy tries to beat me up and then I beat him up, is everybody at this LA hipster French restaurant going to think I'm an asshole? you might have to make that decision having a late breakfast, eating a quiche Lorraine at 10:30 a.m. You might have to consider that. That might just be something that comes up. But also in Little Tokyo, I remember me and my friend went out to get sushi, which is funny because it's some of the best. It's like the best sushi in LA actually will be in Little Tokyo. They're some of the best. We're at this place that's a very small place, but it's the best sushi I've ever had. And you're outside eating fish, which is funny to eat raw fish because there's sewage just next. You know what I mean? It's just dirty LA gutters. Like, it's gross. But you get hammered and you don't really know what's going on. But we were out there on the street, and just probably 5 separate homeless dudes walked by the table and were like, "Can I have some money?" And it's tough when you're like, "Oh, is this the eel?" And then he's like, "Can I have some money?" And you're holding fine sushi, and you're like, "No, no, 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 no. I think it's pretty clear right now what I spend my money on, and it's gonna be this." You know what I mean? But also, eventually, by the third one, you realize that you're a person too, and you should talk to people like real people. Like, it's not like homeless people, you have to only act one way. You can't be like, "Hello, sir," really, you know. So, like, eventually, by the third one comes, you're just honest with them, and you're just like, "Hey, man, honestly, a few guys have already come by, and I already gave them some money. I just can't give everybody money, and I'm sorry. I just can't." And then they'll hear that, and they'll go, "Yeah, that makes total complete sense." It actually makes a lot more sense than saying, "No, I don't have any money." Because it's like, we got sake on the table along with beers. You know what I mean? There's extras of stuff. I have a table of stuff that I own, and I won't own it for very long. It's going to be gone. But if you're out to eat, you have a table of stuff that you just bought that's like easily $30, and they're like, "I bet that wasn't your last $30. So you just got to tell them, like, "Listen, I'd say day to day, I got about $5 I'll spend on a homeless person. And am I spending that 5 every day? No. But I'm saying if I do spend money on a homeless person, it's usually if I'm giving money, that's probably all. I gave $2 to a homeless dude today. And I'm probably tapped out, you know. My girlfriend also offered him half of her tuna sandwich uneaten. It was just cut in half, and she ate the other half, but it was cut. All she did, she put it in the box, but she didn't touch that with her mouth at all. She did smell it. I will say that. Before we left the restaurant, she was like, "It was a good sandwich." It was, it sounds weird, but if you got a tuna sandwich, like, this smells light, I get it, whatever. I was there. She did smell it. He didn't know that, but she did smell it. And he offered it. She offered it to him. And he said, "Did you, like, eat it already?" Which, honestly, people will joke about, like, "Oh, these homeless guys being picky, that they're fucking annoying." Honestly, him being like, "Did you eat it already?" I'm like, I kind of get it. I feel like even if I was at the bottom of the barrel and somebody was like, "I got a burger, but there's 4 bites out of it," I'd be like, "Ooh, a lot of bites in that burger." You know what I mean? Like, it's just going to be... It's good. It's almost kind of beautiful. You can be homeless and still have that, like, I bet I can get food somewhere else. Like, that means there's still drive in you. You know what I mean? It's not like I have to take it. But we were like, no, it was cut in half. Is the other half, and he goes, "Yeah, I don't like to eat food that's been eaten, like the same meal from a person, because then you pick up their attributes." He said it's called attributes. You pick it up, and he goes, "I'm a Santa Maria. So I know better." Or he said no, and it wasn't like against us. He wasn't like, "You're trying to fuck me," but he was like, "No, you can't do that, because if a guy eats half a sandwich and then he offers you the other half, you're gonna be like that guy if you eat that sandwich. So I can't do that. I'm a Santa Maria." And this guy is like, he's got white hair and a beard, no teeth, very wrinkled. 60s, could be a crazy 40, but I think it's 60s. And he's probably been out on the streets for a while. But it was definitely a homeless dude that kind of only lives in LA. Like, he was talking about Santa Maria, you know what I mean? Which is like, I don't want to throw around the word voodoo, but there's a vibe there that's pretty similar in what they're doing. It's it's a Latin, it's a mystical religion, you know what I mean? But you don't get that a lot. You don't get a Duluth homeless guy being like, nah, I can't get your attributes. I think they're more like, is that a sandwich? Yeah, I'd like a sandwich, you know what I mean? And this was a nice sandwich. It was on a baguette, you know? But that's funny for a lot of reasons because I felt bad, but I did think it is funny when I respect him that he's keeping so much of his personal identity outside of being, because a lot of times people become homeless and they're like, I'm homeless, and that's kind of all there is about me. So it's like for this guy, he's really keeping quite a sense of himself despite being on the streets. And also, he was out of his fucking mind nonetheless. But it is funny when a homeless guy is like, I'm a Santa Maria, I know better. And when he said that, my first thought, or what I felt, I didn't really think it, I just felt it. I was like, wow, I was thinking you as more of a homeless guy than a Santa Maria guy. You know what I mean? It's interesting when a homeless guy is like, I'm one of these kinds of guys. I'm one of these people. And I was like, I feel like you need to have a house before you can decide like what kind of guy you are. You know what I mean? Because before then, you're just homeless guy who's doing this thing. You know what I mean? They'll be like, hey, you know that homeless guy in the leather jacket? Yeah, he lives by the 7-Eleven. But then that homeless guy in the leather jacket is like, I'm kind of a leather jacket guy. I'm like a biker type. You know? Like kind of a John Travolta type. That's who I am. When people see me, that's what they think. And it's like, honestly, the homeless is a lot more obvious than the jacket. You know? Like that jacket is kind of melted onto you, you know? And that's a horrible way of thinking about homeless people. But it's how most of you listening think as well. And I would like you to admit it so you could laugh a little. Because it's crazy how we reduce people. You know what I mean? Like you really reduce people if they have an extreme life like that. That's not by choice. I didn't mean to say like if they're into that kind of thing. They're not. They're not into that kind of thing. And if I was homeless, I would hope that I would have the wherewithal to be like, yeah, I'm kind of a Grateful Dead fan, you know? And I think it's good. I think honestly, homeless people should go around to people and they should just tell them things about themselves. Because if you're out there all day, not everybody's giving you money. You can talk to anybody who walks by and they don't need to respond. But you can say anything you want to anybody if you're homeless. The only time people ever get called, like the cops called on them for like threatening and stuff, is if that's like a guy who's not homeless. Because then they're like, this guy just said he's going to kill me. I want to fuck him over and take his life. Or maybe he is going to kill me. With the homeless guy being like, I'm going to kill you. I think most people are like, I would also feel that way if I was homeless and saw a guy eating a quiche Lorraine outside of a cafe. So I'll just take what you said to me, sir, and just kind of back to the quiche, you know? And then I'm not calling. You can say anything you want. So I think if you're homeless and you're listening to this, you're a big fan of the pod. When you walk by people, you should just walk by and be like, whoa, hope that didn't hurt your ears. I hit the mic. You should just walk by and be like, I love baseball. You know what I mean? Just walk by people and be like, I used to be pretty good at chess. Hey, I don't like tomato on a BLT, but I still like the L and the T. Isn't that weird that I like lettuce and just small stuff? Even small stuff's probably even better. You know what I mean? To be like, I honestly think Wonder Bread's pretty good. And then people be like, oh yeah, you guys are in the world. You just don't have a job or a house, which are two drastic differences that make it pretty tough for us to relate. But you still got to eat something. Like, you think about it. It's not like you and a homeless dude are eating different shit every day. You know what I mean? I have a lot of days where I eat a lot of fast food. I've probably had weeks that are a very similar diet to that of a homeless man. It's just that my food was probably newer and I got a little more, you know, and the more is the important part. But the point being, it's like you got to not think you're so different from these people. Like, you look at a homeless guy and you're like, I bet that guy hasn't had a baguette in ages. And you could be completely wrong. He could have crushed a baguette that morning. You know what I mean? Like, you can figure shit out. If you're on the streets, you got to figure shit out. You're probably eating similar stuff all the time because you know what you can afford. So if you're living in some like hipster gentrified area, you could be like, there's a fucking bakery. They'll sell you a baguette for $8. If I buy an $8 baguette, I can just kind of bite that throughout the day and feel full. And then if I pick up some meat or somewhere else, then I'm feeling a little bit better. So my point is, you get a baguette, maybe one day somebody really hooks you up with $100 and you go, fuck it, I'll get brie. Do I think there are a lot of homeless guys eating brie? No. But there are homeless guys refusing tuna salad sandwiches, talking about how they're a Santa Maria and they know better. So there are homeless guys that are still taking time for spirituality. Are there other homeless guys that I'm sure are taking time for the finer things in life when possible? Maybe. I'd like to imagine that. It's almost funny to imagine a guy who went homeless because the only things he ever wants to buy are luxury items. You know, like if he had all this money, but he just wouldn't stop buying houses and cars and he couldn't afford it. Then he lost it. Then it got taken away from him. Now he's on the street and he's penniless. But every time he gets any amount of money, he just buys like a small amount of caviar, like not enough to live off of. You know what I mean? Or like goes to a bar and gets like a glass of champagne and it's like, and it just lives purely for luxury. You know what I mean? Like he'll suck your dick, but for luxury. Like, please, I will suck your dick in the parking lot of the Chateau Marmont if you just let me sit with you for the appetizer portion of the meal. Please, I would like a fried oyster, you know. I don't know why I said fried oyster. That's not a luxury item at all. I don't like oysters, okay? So if anybody listening was going to invite me to a thing with oysters, just save your fucking time. And I say that to a lot of people that I know personally. People I've known for years, I tell them, listen, if you're ever doing an oyster thing, just don't call me, you know? Just don't hit me up. Anyway, I hope everybody's Easter was good. I know my Easter was good because I had the vegetarian version of oysters, which is, of course, deviled eggs. Big fan of that multi-textured, sometimes it feels gross in my mouth, sometimes I think it's great, kind of food. I'm a big devil's egg guy. But deviled eggs are funny to me because it's like half an egg. Each time you eat a deviled egg, you eat a half an egg. So if you like are crushing deviled eggs at a party, you can eat 10 eggs. And I worry about that immediately when I eat deviled eggs. Where I'll be like, oh, these are good. And then I'll pop like 3 in my mouth. And I'm like, that's 1.5 eggs. If I were to sunny side up this thing, it would look like more of a situation. If I came in here and ate 3 over easy eggs right now, I'd feel insane. 6 deviled eggs, I can do that. You know, I can do that pretty quickly. And it feels okay to do. But it's a dangerous appetizer to me because I'm like, these are still just eggs. That's all we're dealing with here is eggs and paprika and whatever you're doing to maybe make the yolk a little softer, you know? So I worry about deviled eggs. I'm like, there's a slippery slope with this to the point where I walk out of here having eaten 12 eggs. This can happen. I could crush 24 deviled eggs. Who knows what could happen, you know? So I do worry about the deviled egg. And if you're wondering, what do I worry about? It's just that same thought repeating. Because I'm at like a family party, you know, it's Easter brunch, but I was still having like a root beer. You know, I wasn't having a mimosa or an orange juice. It didn't feel like morning. It didn't feel like an orange juice time. So I was drinking a Barge's root beer. It's a good root beer, but I was drinking a root beer. And then I was popping in deviled eggs. And I was like, when would I ever do root beer and eggs? Ever. When would I ever do root beer and eggs? I'm doing root beer and eggs right now. That's the big move on my plate is root beer and eggs. And this was the appetizer portion. This was, you know, just some just some stuff, to keep people busy before the ham or whatever comes out. But it's weird. Eggs especially are weird where they'll show up. They'll show up in odd places where you're like, I didn't expect this. You know what I mean? They're showing up in cocktails sometimes, you know what I mean? And it's not like a gin fizz, like all of a sudden you're like, there's egg in here. They're like, yeah, egg made it into this too, you know? And it finds ways to keep being part of stuff. Like I was saying, I had a quiche today, a quiche Lorraine, a French quiche Lorraine, a well done quiche Lorraine, a very thick, hearty, tons of slices of ham, Gruyere cheese, a good crust, a good top too. The top is browned, so it's not just full same texture egg the whole way down. The egg's a little wet, but it's because it's hot. It's in a good way, it's not like runny. And that's exciting. And today I ate it and I was like, I record the podcast, and sometimes I record the podcast and I start talking and I go, man, I feel just out of breath. Like I haven't slept enough. I feel tired. I bet a quiche Lorraine is a bad idea for that. And yeah, it was. It was. The quiche Lorraine is not the meal of champions. And it helps to understand a people by the food that they eat. And there's a lot to learn about the French from their food because they're known as very fancy people, but really a lot of their food is very trashy, and it's the food that just makes you go, ugh, like it gives you itis, you know what I mean? Like you're just like, the classic French thing of like, ugh. Like it's how you feel after a lot of French food. It's not even in a bad way. It's just like you're just full of egg and cheese and ham, but because it's called a quiche Lorraine, it just sounds, But if you put that if you read it as an omelet, of like this is an omelet full of Gruyere cheese and ham, and that's it, you'd be like, oh, this is like a dad omelet. This is like a not healthy at all omelet. Not even like a Denver where there's like peppers and you're kind of like, well, there's a couple vegetables. Like this is a pie of egg and meat and cheese. And it's served with a salad, but at that point, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, we're lying to ourselves, too. I'm glad the greens are in me, but nonetheless. The quiche Lorraine, though, is not the meal of a champion. Michael Jordan never woke up before a game like, what should I get ready for? Probably the quiche Lorraine. That's not happening, Then again, it's a lot of protein. You can go in there and lift. I don't know. But a lot of French food is not... I don't know why it's always considered so fancy. I think there's a lot of French food. Obviously, they were, very premier fine dining. It's even calling it that is an understatement. But nonetheless, you look into specifically what some of they're doing, and it's like it's very plain meals. You know what I mean? Like they'll just cook chicken in a crock pot or the croquet, whatever it is, with just butter and like hay. And just do that until it's soft. And if you cook a chicken perfectly and it falls off the bone and you cooked it in butter, it's going to be savory and it's going to taste good. Chicken just naturally tastes good, I get it. But it's very, like if an American did that, you'd be like, that's gross. You know what I mean? Like if you took some French recipes and you did it just in a crock pot with just the same ingredients, it would look gross. But when you have it in like a nice orange kind of, Dutch oven and there's like So I just the hay thing is from a cooking show I saw. Some French guy, he took the Dutch oven and he filled it with hay, and then he just put a chicken in it and maybe some butter, and then just cooked it and waited till it was done. And if you do that soft, it's good. But I'm saying, listen, you go to a fucking crock pot in America that's not one you put on the stove that just sits and is plugged in, and then you throw in some fucking hay and butter, people are going to be like, what the fuck is this country bitch doing? You know what I mean? But you get away with it because you're French. And there's a lot of vulnerability to being an American. Not actually, but what about this idea that I just came up with right now? It's vulnerable because there is, but it's not long. There's not a lot of culture to hearken to. You know what I mean? People say there's no culture. People say there's especially no white American culture. That's not true. There's just, we've been here and done things, a lot of terrible things, but also normal things. We've had food traditions for a long time. There is white American culture. It's a thing. And there is a general American culture. There is. But there's not a lot of it. There's not hundreds, thousands of years of people doing that. You know what I mean? Like when you're in fucking the Netherlands and they're eating gross ass versions of fish, you're kind of like, well, they've been doing it for a while. So it's kooky. It's gross to me. I'd never eat it, but that's their thing, and I'll respect it. Everything we do in America is like, you fucking weirdos just made this up. And it's like, yeah, we did, but so did you. You just did it a while ago, and then you've stuck with the stuff that works. We're still figuring it out. We're less than 400 years into a country, okay? So there's a lot of stuff to figure out. We figured out casseroles are probably a moment in our time as a nation. They're not a staple food. We figured that out. We learned that. We're finding new ways. We figured mac and cheese, that's here. That's going to stay. That's good. French fries, we like them. That's good. We're going to stay. Did we make either of those? Debatably, no. The point is. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's the point is what I'm saying is if an American made quiche Lorraine, we would be made fun of. Okay? We would be called fools. Mainly because we would call it Big Mama's sloppy egg pie. And I get that. It's not a good look for us. We don't name things well. The French are great at naming food. La croquette madame, la croquette monsieur. They got good names. Steak tartare. I don't even know if that's French, but fucking carpaccio, that sounds Italian, but French places do it. But, steak tartare, that's just fucking shitty raw meat with a bunch of stuff that you mix in and you eat it raw. And I love it, but it's called steak tartare. Now, if it was invented in America, it would be called like Randy's raw dog beefsteak. It would be something stupid, So, and there's even a version of that in like Minnesota. There's a burger or an open-faced raw meat and onion sandwich. And I think it's just called an open-faced raw meat onion sandwich. Like in America, we don't try and dress anything up. The fun is naming the food exactly the gross thing that it is. You know what I mean? It's why you go places and they're like, this is the 15-layer cheeseburger. And you're like, what is that? You're like, it's what you think it is. And you're like, it shouldn't be. You know what I mean? But there's no like, what does the quiche Lorraine really mean? Because it was made in Lorraine, And what is quiche? Is it a French word that used to mean, as go the winds off a butterfly's wings or something like that, It's harder to hide in America, There's a lot of foods in America that are named after guys, but not in like a nice way. It's not like, oh, Earl of Sandwich, you know what I mean, or something. Like, that was a terrible example. But I'm saying there are definitely foods that are named after people, But in America, it's like it's named after like a Guy Fieri, and it's less dignified. I think this conversation, as well as just about every conversation on the show, is revealing quite a lack of culture by me, and I apologize. But the names in general, just France can get away with it because like I like Bordeaux wines. I like wines from the Bordeaux region. It's a field wine of a mix of several grapes, usually Cabernet and Merlot, from both sides of the river. I like that, and it's from Bordeaux, and Bordeaux is a historic place to grow wine. But there's a lot of amazing, debatably better places even to grow wine in California, like Napa Valley or even Temecula. But Bordeaux is a much better name. And it has it's any French word you associate with wine, you're like, that's got to be better. It's hard to put a lot of faith in Napa, Sonoma, kinda, but it just doesn't feel like Bordeaux, because Bordeaux doesn't feel like a real place to Americans. So we're like, let's get a wine from a made-up fantastical fairy wonderland, because we can go to Napa right now, and most of it is just pretty hot, and annoying to be around. But I don't know. I mean, I started the day off with a quiche and a coffee, and I don't know. I'm just saying, eggs are. If you want to take anything away from this podcast, it's the fact that eggs are slipping into a lot of different places. And I'm surprised I didn't. I am a little pissed I didn't have a good egg dish this weekend for Easter. I mean, I talked about the deviled eggs. They were there. They made an appearance. That's great. There was an egg casserole. There was an egg casserole at the same party, and it was terrible. It was. I don't know what my aunt was thinking. I don't know what the fuck she was on when she made this egg casserole. But first off, don't make an egg casserole. Buy a quiche. You don't even need to make it. Go to a place that sells quiches that you heat up in the oven and make that, okay? Or make your own quiche. It's pretty fucking simple. Make a quiche. Don't make an egg casserole. That's your first mistake. Even the idea, you're wrong from the jump. Cream cheese was in it. There was cream cheese. There was a Monterey Jack cheese. Those aren't supposed to meet. Was this a jalapeno popper? She might have said cottage at some point. I think I might have heard cottage. I think sour cream might have been involved. Tons of fucking eggs were involved. And a lot of, I think, some milk too. And it's like a few of these things, like the cream cheese, the cottage cheese, the milk, the sour cream, which I think were all in there. I think maybe one of them wasn't, but I think all of those were in there. All of those can be in an egg dish, but by themselves. And what I mean by that is, you know how people be like, you know how you make scrambled eggs a little better? Add a little milk, and you do that or whatever. It's like there are certain dairy products you can add to eggs to enhance it, but it's supposed to get lost in it. It's supposed to be like, how is this egg casserole so fluffy? And you're like, it's the sour cream. And you're like, I didn't even think it was in here. It just tastes like good, and you don't know. This was like, hey, here's a bunch of eggs. And also, what about a chunk of another cream substance? And it's like, there's so many. This is a cream casserole at this point. It was the whitest thing I've ever experienced. And my aunt is not trashy. She's very rich. She's the richest on my mom's side. And I took one bite and I was so disappointed because I was like, hey, Easter's coming up. Maybe there will be some quiches making an appearance. I'd sure like that. When my grandma was still fucking alive and shit was how it was supposed to be run, there were quiches. She didn't make them. She bought them, and she heated them up like she should have. We don't need her to slave away making a real quiche. Get a real quiche from somebody else and feed it to your family. You have to. It's fucking Easter. Now, my grandma's side of the family, nobody picked up the slack on the quiche this year. Maybe I have to, and I'm not accepting that. But nobody picked up any fucking slack on the quiche. No quiche on my grandma's side. Egg casserole on my mom's side. Okay, not related to my grandma. My mom's side. Shitty egg casserole. No quiche. Today, if anything, was a redemption quiche. And today we were going to breakfast, and I was like, maybe I'll get the Eggs Benedict. Then I was like, I don't know. I think something about that quiche I want. And you know what it was? It was sucked from me. It was sucked. I was sucked out of a quiche that I really deserved. Because, listen, I'm not Easter egg hunting anymore. When I'm coming to the Easter party, I am coming for the hope that somebody didn't fuck everything up and they made a fucking quiche, okay? 2 quiches. 1 quiche Lorraine. 1 spinach or other kind of vegetable. Have fun. I don't care. I'm probably just going to eat the Lorraine. But there does have to be ham in that. In one of these quiches, there kind of does have to be ham. But I don't know, maybe one with some olives. I don't know. Get crazy. Whatever. Fuck it. Just saying, have one. Don't have a casserole. Don't you hate it when you're, I don't know. I feel like if I went to somebody's dinner party and they tried out a recipe, I would not be mad. Because I'd be like, we planned this party just to eat. So the food you might as well have fun with. This is low stakes. When it comes to Easter, it's like, well, we came here because we're a family and we all have to come here. So we're going to be here anyway. Even if you showed up and there was no food, we would all just be like, why the fuck's there's no food? But we would all sit around and just sit around because we know we have to as a family. So we need reliable foods at these family Christmas parties. And something has happened in the last few years with my family that it's not reliable anymore on at least my mom's side. They are white people, but they're white people that are seeing trends in cooking magazines. There was 4 flatbreads at Easter. 4 like crunchy flatbreads with like arugula and like piled high, and you get like a slice from it. And I didn't take one because I have respect for the rebirth of Christ, for the second coming. Well, I guess it's not the second coming. It was the rising, whatever. For the day he rose, I have respect. And there were 4 flatbreads. It was like this big, it was as if that was almost the main attraction. There was ham, but there was also 4 fucking flatbreads, as if to say, this is a lot of what we're serving. And then a fruit salad and other shit. But it's like, where are these flatbreads from? Why'd you make an egg casserole, not a quiche? Every holiday, make the same fucking food and just do it better every time. But what the fuck? Why are you changing the menu? Each holiday party should be its own restaurant where the menu never changes. And you go, okay, Easter at my dad's side of the family, I can expect this, this, and that. Easter at my mom's side of the family, I can expect this, this, and that. This year, everybody's fucking around. Everybody's playing games. You know what I mean? They got the ham right at both places. They did it differently at both, but the ham was acceptable. At one point, my uncle came over on my dad's side, came over with a sauce to eat with the ham that I was like, we don't need this sauce at all. But yeah, I mean, it's like every fucking salad now has got craisins in it, which I don't mind, but it's like it's every salad now is a craisin, feta, mixed green, maybe even some oranges and a vinaigrette salad, which I don't mind. But it is funny that it's like, this just looks more interesting than the shit we used to be eating. White families now are kind of afraid to eat a bunch of like tan food anymore. You know what I mean? We used to just eat like white and tan foods, just unseasoned chicken and mashed potatoes, and then the greens was the greens. It was like asparagus and that was it. But now it's like we made a this kind of salad and we got a this and that. And some of it I like, some of it I think are some great new additions of just adding weird like American coastal Italian fusion almost. But other stuff with like the flatbread, it's just like, it's fucking Easter. Why did you make flatbreads? You're making dinner party foods at Easter. And yeah, I mean, the food situation just sucks. But it doesn't suck like a Midwestern basic white family sucks. It's like California white. So some people are trying stuff out and then it just ends up sucking. And you just have a fucking egg casserole that sucks dick when the entire time you could have had a fucking quiche and put in 25% of the work that you put in and saved a shit. Eggs are expensive now. Don't waste a bunch of eggs trying out a fucking egg casserole that nobody in their right mind wants to eat. I felt bad. I couldn't even stop myself. I made a face. I put it in my mouth and I went, ooh, ah. And I finished the bite because I'm an adult. But I was not happy about it. You know what I mean? I was very unhappy. And I don't know. Sometimes I feel like my family parties are not on the ball. I feel like you show up and nobody's given times anymore. I don't know if that's a thing that used to happen. I feel like it kind of was, where everybody would be like, dinner's at 7. Dinner's at 7. Show up whenever you want, but dinner is at 7. Now it's like, hey, we're having Easter at, well, you do it during the day, but it's like we're having Easter at 1. And I'm like, okay. And then you go over and then all of a sudden it's 2 and you're like, when is the fucking food coming? Because you could have told me food's at 2 and I would have got here at 1:30. Because this is 30 minutes of socializing with Cooper, what are you up to? Nothing, okay? This fucking, what am I going to, I have to tell people I do this. I can't tell them how it goes. Chop off the 30 minutes. Tell me when dinner's coming out. Brunch, the food. That's what I'm talking about. We're at dinner. We're at Easter. Sorry. We're at Easter. I got there 15 minutes late or so. Everybody's already there. There are 2 children there, 2 Easter egg hunting aged children. So they are doing an Easter egg hunt that had been going on for a little too long before I got there and went on a little too long after I got there. And my mom, this is how it's really nice to see similarities with you and your parent, is everybody else didn't seem to be thinking about it. Everybody's calm, having drinks, eating some of the deviled eggs or the appetizers. My mom's like, yeah, I don't know when the food's going to come out. I think they're waiting for them to be done with this Easter egg hunt. And then I was like, that's fucking bullshit. And she was like, yeah, I'm going to go help them with the Easter egg hunt. And then just spent 10 minutes helping, but really demolishing these kids in an Easter egg hunt so we could then get the food started. And I'll tell you, once all those eggs were found, she made an app. She was like, hey, all the eggs are done, which was really almost like a parlor, like a Victorian subtle nod to her sister to be like, bring out the food, because my mom was like, hey, they found all the eggs. And then my aunt went, oh, and then walked in the kitchen without saying a word. And then the food fucking came out. You got to give it up for my mom. Just a stealthy, smart woman, a hairdresser. She's talked to people, and a nice hairdresser, not a shitty fucking salon. Most of your fucking moms could not afford to get their hair cut at the salons my mom has cut at, okay? You understand that? It's not bullshit, okay? This is West Valley, close to Calabasas, on the fringe of some of the richest people in the world. That's where they get their hair cut. Don't look into what I'm saying. But she knows how to talk to people, She knows how to conversate, and, she avoids conflicts but gets what she wants. Well, it's not manipulating. It's real good California. Maybe I'm not going to say exactly what I'm thinking, but it's going to get done. And this is, I'm not going to embarrass you. She's not going to embarrass her sister by going, hey, Mary, bring out the food. But she is going to finish up that fucking Easter hunt, make an announcement that will tell my aunt, bring out the fucking food. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm saying. A lot of people will be like, oh, people in LA are fake. And we're the Valley. A lot of people debate we're not. But a lot of people say, hey, LA, you LA people, you're all fake. You don't just say what you want. But listen, what my mom is doing is not fake. It is a language that if you cannot speak it, you are too stupid to live here and to be around us, okay? There's all these people like, why don't you just say what you want? Why don't you fucking get what I mean, idiot? Okay? I'm not trying to call you a douchebag in front of all these people, but I am trying to make you stop acting like this and get us onto a different topic of conversation and move it along. You know what I mean? Or I'm trying to get out of this conversation without telling you I'm trying to get out of this conversation. I'll suggest something and just, boom, I'm out of there. I got to go do some boom, boom, boom. If I do that 5 times to you, get it? But anyway, these are the politics that are happening at my family Easter parties, and that is what keeps us together. It is the fabric, you know what I mean? You had a very white question at the family Christmas party. My stepdad, who's white, can you believe it? His brother's kid was at our table. My mom was eating the egg casserole, and she said, I got a slice of that. She's like 7. She's like, I got a slice of that. Can you, and she said she has the same exact voice as me. She said, I got a slice of that. Can you tell me if that is spicy? Because I'm a 7-year-old girl, and I'm white. And I looked at a yellow and white colored egg casserole, and my first worry was, is this spicy? Which is insane. And before my mom took a bite, I said, it's not. I didn't know what was in it. I hadn't even ate it yet, but I was like, it is not. It is not spicy. And then my mom took a bite and really thought about it. And I was like, we can't enforce this kind of behavior. You can't ask these questions out in public. What egg dishes are you eating that you're like, whew, that was way too spicy? Like, what are you talking about? I mean, she's 7. That's what she's talking about. But it was a very white family question where you feel it when you're with the family. You know what I mean? You really feel it. But yeah, it was a good Easter. My mom got me an Easter basket, as she still does every year. Can't stop her. Can't stop her from doing that. Really good way to make yourself feel like you're a young guy out there hustling and grinding to own an Easter basket for any period of time. To have an Easter basket really makes you feel like you're a man now. Um, but I'm not going to give that up because she's going to fucking die one day and then be dead for the rest of my life. So if your mom gives you a fucking Easter basket and it makes you feel like a kid, you should cherish it because she's going to die, maybe horribly. You know what I mean? 30% chance, just a terrible, terrible coughing, wheezing, resistant death. You could have that happen. And then that year you don't get an Easter basket and you know why, and it's a bummer. And you'd hate to look back and go, I was such a bitch about all the old Easter baskets, you know what I mean? So that was pretty immediately intense. But I did go through that thinking with the Easter basket because it's not something I don't think about Easter much. We're not a very religious family. We don't care about Easter that much as we do gather every time it happens. And my mom will say, "Hey, I got something for it," and she'll still say, "I got something." She won't even tell me it's the basket, but I know it is. And she's like, "You got to come over sometime this week," because sometimes maybe the party's not happening or sometimes I have to get the basket somewhere else. But she'll be like, yeah, you gotta, I got something for you. You gotta come over. And I really try and care about it because last year I don't know if there was a family party. I think people were out of town. So my mom kind of did her own thing, but she was like, yeah, you gotta come over and get this Easter basket. And I was like, okay. I kind of took a while to do it. And then eventually I was like, I need to go over there because I thought about buying an Easter basket and I didn't really know how to do that or what that entailed. Because you can buy just full ready-made ones, I think. But my mom makes Easter, like she'll buy like packs of small candies and she'll make one for my brother too, who's like 30. And she'll fill it with like the marshmallows that look like rabbits but not Peeps, and then also Peeps, and then malt eggs, and then this, that, and this and that, and do all this work. And if you ask me like, hey, make an Easter basket, if you ask me, a 23-year-old boy, go make an Easter basket, it would take me 3 days tops. Minimum 3 days minimum to find all of those materials, to find the basket. And it's not a basket, it's an Easter basket. It's multicolored with Easter colors of what. So she makes she's got, and yeah, there's a bunch of fucking frizzles and charcuterie pretty much at the bottom. That is honestly most of it. She's not going to fill it all the way up with candy. But the shit looks like she could work at a place that makes them do a pretty good fucking job. And so I thought about that last year, about making the Easter basket. And I was like, fuck, it's really important that I pick up this Easter basket. Because you do all this work. She's a mom. She's running around. She can do any of that. She can bang that shit out. She knows exactly where to go. It's not even a question. But the fact that she's still doing it and going through all that trouble to make an Easter basket for this holiday that we're not even that serious about is like, this is probably the most important part of Easter every year, is that I come pick up this basket. And most of the time we see each other at the family party, she gives it to me there and it's totally fine. But just other times there's been years, So you got to think about that with your mom. And yeah, a lot of white dudes out there, or a lot of just privileged kids in general. It's not just it's a money thing, middle class, upper middle class. You feel like a piece of shit because you're not rich, but compared to the rest of the world, you are enormously wealthy. You're pampered, but it's not an exciting, you're not flying, but you just know where food's coming from, And now I live on my own and things are a little more precarious, but still. So sometimes you don't, it's embarrassing to accept the Easter basket because it reminds you of what a pampered bitch you are. But what it should remind you of really is your mother's love and how hard she works for that. To do those things. Because she's probably given you that because she wasn't getting Easter baskets every year. And that might have been nice, One year she just got the death of her father when she was around my age. So that's way different than an Easter basket, than some malt balls, It's way different. So, listen, if you got an Easter basket this year, which I swear to God, none of you did. Well, nobody's fucking getting that as an adult. This is totally my mom's thing. But if you did, savor it. Because one day, your mom is going to tell you that the doctor told her something, and then that thing is going to kill her in like 5 weeks, So that's a good thing to remember. It's a good thing to keep in mind every single Easter, that is coming, that is happening, that's a real thing. And just have that at the forefront of your mind when you're around your family at all times, really. That's what I would do. At all times when you're around your family, just think about them dying. And I do think about that a lot. I think about my family dying a good amount because I try and get lunch with my mom and my dad about once a week each. It's more like once every 2 weeks. Sometimes they got busy schedules too. But that's the one thing I think about all the time is like, I got to hang out with them because they are going to die. And they're going to die quicker than I realize. And they're both like 60, so they're starting to get old. And then each 5 years, they're going to look a lot different from now on. Once you get to 60, every 5 years, there's a change. You're a deeper version of old, and you get to a level of old, and you go, oh, fuck, they're just that level of old now, and then it gets worse from there, And one day I'll look at my dad and be like, whoa, he's like full old right now, And I want to have gone to lunch with him enough that I don't look at him as a man I don't know. And me and him have a close, relationship. He's been vulnerable with me in times of trouble and stuff, for better or for worse. I do know him well. I do think I have a great relationship with him and my mom too. But, there's always, I think when you get older, you start to feel like there's work to be done with your parents because maybe you didn't realize they were people just like you until you moved out. That was kind of how it was for me. I mean, I realized they were people just like me before, because that's, natural. But also, I saw the death of my family. I saw them at their worst. You saw them at that part. There's also that nice part when you're like 20, 22, and you can hang out with your parent. And now my family's okay, so there's no tension. You can hang out with them and kind of hang out with them like a person and see what they're like as people. And once you really realize that, not in a desperate, fuck, our family's falling apart, I'm seeing my dad cry for the first time, but in a way of like, oh, I'm a little older, I'm having a beer, I'm hanging out with my dad, like I'm hanging out with him. Once you see that, you go, oh, fuck, you're a whole guy. And the fact that this is surprising to me means I didn't really get that. And I know you well enough. And you're on the way out, You got, probably 30 years tops, So more likely, 15 to 20. So we got to bang this out, you know what I mean? Because that's going to slip by, The 1 to 15 for my life slipped by for you because you were busy being a parent. And now the 1 to 15 of you fucking dying is going to slip by for me because I'll be young. So I got to go to lunch with you every week to find out something else weird about you so I can remember you as a a beautiful, complex person and not just as, dad. So that's important. That's why you take the Easter baskets. That's why you go to lunch. Set it up. If your parents, luckily my parents live in the same city. If your parents live in the same city as you and you're not going to lunch with them, like at least once a month and talking to them on the phone other times, you're a piece of shit. Like, unless you're super duper fucking busy, which if you're listening to this being like, I am super duper fucking busy, you're not, okay? You're listening to this. You're not busy. You could have been at lunch with your father for this last hour, unless you're driving to lunch with your dad. In which case, good job. Best case scenario, you listened to the first half, got out of the car, lunch with your dad, got back in the car, listened to the second half of this podcast, and you're like, I'm a great fucking guy. Because I agree, I'm not doing any of this bullshit these other losers are doing, Anyway, go see your parents because they're going to die. And keep watching this podcast because I'm going to die soon of cholera. So hopefully I'll see you next week if the cholera doesn't take me. And if not, it's been a great run. Thank you so much for tuning in. I love you.